We had chips.
I didn't get to get away for lunch. So the first thing I had today, besides a breakfast bar this morning, was a dinner. And we had a light, like salmon meal tonight. So it just did not fill me up. And I've been like snacking incessantly ever since.
I'm so hungry all the time, but I'm trying not to eat my kids' Fig bars. And so like I bought dates.
Oh, dates are awesome.
Oh yeah. I've never had them before. And I got this big bag of them at Costco. So dates are good. I polished off some strawberries earlier, some blueberries earlier. I ate 2 bananas just now, like a few minutes ago.
Yep.
And a handful of almonds. And I'm trying to just load my gut with fiber
with stuff
and tell it to stop wanting sugar, because this is the time of day where it's like, okay, it's dangerous. Like I could put away a lot of crap if I wanted to, but I'm trying hard not to. Fruits
and almonds and stuff like that are like the best things that you can snack on.
Yeah.
Because it feels the most filling.
Yeah.
Like, this is all empty calories right here. But I'm like, I just need calories. I have to have food. Yeah. Like I just need things. And so I was like, I can either push the podcast a little longer, like starting, and like pop some popcorn or do something. But I was like, yeah, these are here. I'm just grabbing them and going.
Yeah. I buy and cook and subsequently have a lot of leftovers of meat. And so like I try really hard to go, nope, there's stuff in the fridge. There's chicken in the fridge. I could just eat the chicken. I could eat the ham. I could eat the fish. Like there's stuff in there. There's rice in there. Just stuff I could eat.
Yep.
I know that for like the past month, I have not been having enough water. And so that's also like, I also know I'm really just thirsty.
Honestly, we don't have chips like this very often, like grab and go bags of chips. And I'm like, well, I'll just grab them. I'm having them. I don't know what they were for, but they're for me now.
So Callan was just at my house, and we were both sort of talking, each of us, about how fat we've become, like how much weight we've gained. And it's just like, and as part of it's like the new year, sure, but like even after, even like towards mid-December, I was like, I really need to try to have another push to get back on track with all this. So, because for a while I was doing real good, I was but then I haven't been running since I got like, I think I got like sick or something in October, something like that. And then I was about to get back on the horse, and I knew I was going in to get this ink done on my shoulder. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to run after that. And so I was like, well, then there's no point. And then like there was the touch ups, and I was like, no, it's cold. It's just.
Are you not supposed to run after a tattoo?
You can. It's just what you're really, the best thing to do after you get one is just to moisturize it and leave it alone. Like don't wear tight clothing on it. Like you're trying to prevent unnecessary friction and infection. I was like, I probably shouldn't sweat into it and have it rub on. All my running shirts are tight and sleeved. And so I was like, okay.
Yep.
So I just thought it was a bad idea. And it was just getting cold. And then my wife was working nights and she was in school. And I was just like, okay, so the only time I can run is in the early morning. And that's like when it's the coldest. And I just I just couldn't do it. And so between that and like stress eating, I was just like, oh.
Yep.
My daughter told me the other day, she goes, I thought she was pushing me in a cart, something. We were doing something. And she was like, something about, all 200 pounds of you. And I was like, I don't weigh that much. 200 pounds.
All 700 pounds of you, Dad.
She also thinks I'm old. When she talks about old people like you, it's like, I'm 35. It's what a 10-year-old would say, but like,
yes,
please.
You know what's funny? The other day, I was listening to a podcast. I can't remember what it was, but they mentioned something about being in the prime of your life at 35. And I was like, and I literally thought something. I thought, man, I'm a few years away from that. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
There. Yeah.
Oh, no, I am there.
This is now. What is Prime at 35?
I have no idea.
There's really no upsides to being 35 inherently, unless it's all perspective. Like there's inherent upsides to being like 25. It's like I can rent a car now, but that's the last like fun milestone. After that, it's just closer to being dead.
I'm 35. I have a mortgage.
Oh, nothing's changed. You know,
I have a mortgage and my knees hurt. Oh.
It's to the point. I'm not like, as we record this, I'm not yet 35, but I've explained to people that I just turn over my birthday at the first of the year because it's pointless for me to, you know, like cherry pick my age like that.
Sure.
Like I'm not like weird about it. It's just like, it's just easier for me to just go ahead and accept it.
Yep.
As a couple of 30 something men, it's becoming harder and harder for me to identify with things like Scott Pilgrim. Which I guess we'll talk about the series and I suppose the movie by comparison.
Yeah. Did you rewatch the film?
I did rewatch the film. Okay. I own the film. I have it on Blu-ray.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I don't own it, but it's on Netflix.
Yeah. So I didn't watch it. I watched it on Netflix, but I had the Blu-ray out ready until I realized it was on Netflix.
Yeah.
And then I got lazy. I was like, I'm not going to set up my player. I'm just going to click play. It went against all my principles. I was like,
I was going to say, you're part of the problem. Hoover.
I know. I own it. And I was like, it's just easier to click. And I clicked and then I cried.
What have I become? I'm 35 and I'm watching Netflix.
I'm their key demo. Well, no, I'm not actually. No, probably not.
No. Nope. Nope.
The girl of my dreams?
It's time to wake up, dude.
I had a dream about that girl again.
I didn't care the first time you told me. Care even less now.
Toronto, Canada. Not too long ago.
Hey, wanna go out sometime?
You want to go on a date with me?
Ramona Flowers has 7 evil exes, all of whom you must defeat in order to date her.
What?
Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim. Ramona Flowers. Matthew Patel. Wallace Wells. Lucas Lee. Stacy Pilgrim. Indiana. Kim Pine.
This info dump was inevitable.
Julie Bowers. Todd Ingram. Gideon Gray. Young Neil. Steven Still. Roxy Richter. Nice Chow. Scott Pilgrim takes off. Let's party.
So Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is the show. It's a Netflix show. Every time I type it in, I accidentally type Scoot Pilgrim, and then it makes me laugh. And so this is based on the comics, the Scott Pilgrim comics by Brian Lee O'Malley. He's also like essentially the showrunner here. He co-developed it, co-wrote it. And what's fun about this is anime. And what's fun about it for people is that the English dub is the voice cast from the Edgar Wright film, which was released in 2010. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When we were in college.
Yep.
I don't know how you want to structure this, but I just want to say the first thing I think of when I think of Scott Pilgrim is we were like smack in the middle of like the perfect age and time and place to watch that film.
Yep.
We were in our early 20s. We were surrounded by hipsters. Some of us are hipsters. Everyone we knew was in a band of some kind.
Yep.
And every one of us were familiar with video games and video game culture. And so it was, I don't remember where I'm pretty sure the first time I saw Scott Pilgrim, they played it in the Trustees Theater.
Yep. That's where I saw it.
And I think that's where I think when we all went to that was my first time seeing it. And that was fun.
Yeah. It was a fun screening for sure.
Yeah. And then I bought it, but nothing will beat that first. Just watching it in a theater full of college kids. That was.
Yeah. They all enjoyed it and identified with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed the film. I never bought it. Although I think now I might, but like I never bought it back then because I feel like I liked it only moderately, like out of all of us.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was about it, but like it was a great screening experience. But I never felt like like I truly identified with the film, even though it did a lot of things that I should identify with. It said a lot of things and had a lot of references to things that I liked, but I never really quite latched onto it for whatever reason. And now like rewatching it, I feel like maybe I've stumbled on at least one of the reasons. And I think it's because I have watched it after I watched Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, is I feel like it's a little rushed. Like it's a good movie, but I feel like this story is so in depth, right? There's 7 villains to fight that I found myself like reeling a little bit from the whiplash of like, now we're here. And it's a little bit fast and a little bit much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like without that time to like truly breathe and feel what Scott is feeling, for me, I think it kept me at arm's length, but I enjoyed it. And I think I enjoy it more now, weirdly enough, just because I don't know, maybe there's a nostalgia to it, but it's also, I think I appreciate it more now.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I'm older. I've seen more films. I've seen more of Edgar Wright's films. Like at the time, I don't think I'd ever seen an Edgar Wright movie.
Yeah. I don't think I had either. Maybe Shaun of the Dead, but.
Yeah. I think maybe I saw Hot Fuzz. I can't remember, but like it was one of those I saw first. And but now having seen so many, if not all, of Edgar Wright's movies, I certainly feel like, oh, this is like, it is an Edgar Wright movie, and I have way more appreciation for what he brings to it. And so I feel like I appreciate it more now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think specifically, I thought about like Baby Driver. Like that's one of those films that feels similar in tone, I suppose, to this one.
Which I do own Baby Driver. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, I like Baby Driver a lot.
And I feel like it's almost the more mature version of this. Or I don't know if mature is the right word, but like the more palatable for the normal audience, like for the normies that aren't like super steeped in gaming culture and nerddom,
indie music.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe it's just a little more palatable. Like I always think like the layman, which of Edgar Wright's movies would I like recommend first?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, probably I would recommend Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, right? They seem to be the most accessible.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe it would be Baby Driver. Like it just feels so accessible.
Yeah, I agree.
And this feels very niche.
Yeah. Yeah, the film's really niche. It was, enjoyable, but I found it maybe just for me. I watched it. I'm like, oh, okay. Like there's things I like about it, but I think I just identify less with it, or I cringe a little more at it, and I go, okay, like we're leaning a little into like what it was like to be a fan of Michael Cera at the time, and early Aubrey Plaza, and just some of this stuff, pre Captain America, Chris Evans. It was just pre Captain Marvel, Brie Larson.
Yep.
It was more like I look at that cast and I'm like, okay, some of it is just like reminds me of the time that it was made.
Yeah.
But I think that this show is a good complement to it, because I was watching it thinking, oh, this is like this is the same story, because the dialogue was the same. Yeah. It's like, okay, I can watch 8 episodes of this story again, I suppose, but I'm not thrilled to. And then when it deviates, I was like, oh, okay, at least this is something different.
It's funny because I rewatched the film. I'd only seen it the one time at the Trustees Theater in, what was that? Probably 2011 when school started.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I'd ever seen it. And I had vague memories of it. Like I remember, big set pieces and, whatever, but I didn't remember a lot about it. So I'm watching the first episode and going like, this seems really familiar. Like, I think I'm remembering all of this and it's starting to come back to me. And then when what happens at the end of the first episode happens, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I think like, I know this isn't the way that played out.
Yeah.
And then the second episode opens and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is cool. This is something different.
Yeah.
And because I, like you, thought this is just a retelling. Like my impression of it was that the creator had said, I like the film, but I can do it more closely related to my books.
Yeah.
But I'm going to use your cast, Edgar Wright, but I'm going to do the books.
Yeah.
And like, that's what I thought this was.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be a pseudo sequel, alternate timeline. It's crazy. It's off the wall bonkers.
Yeah.
It's a reboot, sequel, alternate timeline. And I didn't expect that. Totally didn't expect it. Caught me off guard.
Yeah. I think the show is fine. I don't know that I would recommend this to regular people to a mainstream audience because I think that, like we said, I think the subject matter, the writing, it's just niche. And I think that I can't picture my brother watching this show or even clicking on it.
Yep.
So it's a really good compliment to the film and it's executed in probably the best way, it could have been. There were times where I didn't know if it was just me being like weirdly elitist, but I was like, some of this animation is and sound design just felt so basic to me. It reminded me it's certain areas and I can't really describe why. Maybe it's just the simplicity of the character's movement or the relative non-fluidity of how they would move in a dialogue scene versus like an action scene.
Yep.
It reminded me of John's like senior project. Like the way his person would move. And I would go, I just feel like this should be a cut above that but whatever. And that's me just like, okay, if I obviously don't know what the budget was for this and this could be an artistic choice. So it just didn't work for me, I guess.
Sure.
In the way that it could have, because I've seen really great anime. Yeah. It can be very fluid and dynamic. Plot wise, I found myself sort of bored throughout this. I don't know if it was the writing or if it was the voice performances, but there were a lot of times between set pieces where I was kind of slipping away from the narrative. And I felt like the narrative was confusing enough to maybe detach from the stakes of the story sometimes. Like things would be happening. I'm like, oh, okay. And then something would happen. I'd go, wait, but how does, okay, oh, well, but like it's a little fast itself. It's not as fast as the movie. Yeah. But it's a little quick itself. But then there are times where it gets really slow and like cerebral and which is great for a show like this to do. But there are those times where I'm like, don't know what's happening. And I feel like I've been left behind by the plot somewhat.
Sure.
So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, it should have been done like this. I just don't, I certainly don't think a mainstream person could enjoy this. This feels more like this was made for us.
Sure.
And it's cool, but it's more like, I feel like it was made and the only reason I watched it was because the cast came back. But if the English cast, if they had just been like, yeah, we'll just get some rando actors to voice this, I wouldn't have watched it. And I feel like it was just a tack on to, I don't know.
Sure.
In a weird way.
Sure. No, I hear you. So for me, in terms of the animation, it varies, right? There are times where the animation is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's fluid and it's fantastic. And I think that it's stylistically, those moments are stylistically chosen. And then I think, or I'll say this: they may be chosen by budget. They may be forced upon them, but they chose the right moments to get cheap and the right moments to go all out.
Yeah.
And then there are also times where, to your point, specifically, I'm thinking of the episode that features Chris Evans' character prominently. Where I felt like a lot of the sequences of Lucas Lee skateboarding felt really this is a really obscure reference. I don't know if anybody's going to understand this, but really Newsgroundsy. I don't know if you remember, there's a website called Newsgrounds.
Yeah, the stick figures fighting.
Yes, that was one of its claims to fame.
So
but this is like early days, pre-YouTube, where people could create animation and put it online, and you could view it in their like little Flash player, and it felt a lot like that to me. But initially I bumped against it, but then it would come out of those moments and into something that looked pretty good. And so my question, what I'm unclear on is, were those moments done by somebody different for budgetary reasons? You know, was it done more cheaply because of budget or because of a style, or like what was the purpose of that? And it may just be a budget thing. It may just be that, look, we've got 8 episodes of this thing to film. At some point something's going to slip. And this happens with all shows, right? Like you'll have Batman the Animated Series. It's a great show, beautifully animated. Nobody debates that, but you'll find episodes that are better animated than others.
Sure.
And those stand out like as being like beautiful, but then those ones where, you know, it's animated by another production house somewhere, and it's like, it's a little bit off model. That Joker's not quite right, you know, and you start to pick up on those things. And like, I don't know if it's a case of that here, or if it's truly a budget. Like, I'm not sure, but it doesn't bump me too bad because I'm used to that in animation. Every TV series has its episodes that are gorgeous, and every series has its episodes that are not as gorgeous. And so it didn't bump me too much. But if somebody asked me, like, can you describe the animation? I would say it's beautiful anime that looks like the story that it's based on. It looks like the comics.
Yes, it does.
Like this isn't going to be like hyper realistic. It's not going to be like Pluto. This is going to be something that looks more like the comics that it's based on. But it's a beautiful version of that. And it can also look a little like Newgrounds. And so that's kind of where I come down on that. As far as like, well, who would I recommend this to? Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would recommend this to like my dad, and I certainly would recommend this to like my brother, even though he's way more steeped in like the gaming culture. I still think it's too niche even for him. And so I don't know who I'd recommend this to. And I don't know why I chose to watch it, other than that for a few years now, I've had this weird urge to like rewatch the movie. And then this popped up and I'm like, oh, this has the original cast. And I thought, oh, this is a retelling of the movie. I'll just watch this. Right. Because it's the new thing. And then I was so shocked and surprised when it wasn't, that maybe that's flavoring my opinion of it. But I really enjoyed this. And I found it easier to follow, because it takes, I say easier to follow, not like I have problem with the plot mechanics, but easier to follow in that I can track the emotional journey a little easier for our character who in this film, which I guess we're in this series, which we're in spoilers, I suppose. Yeah. Is Ramona. Ramona is our protagonist here for the most part. And I feel like it's way easier to track her emotional journey in this than it ever was with Scott in the film. And I think that that's for a couple of reasons. One, the film is shorter, everything's truncated. And because of that, also everything's a little heightened. So you have like this moment where like in the film, Scott is fighting the evil exes, but you never really feel it until like it bubbles up at one point, and he's kind of rude to her and mean to her because he's just over it. He's just done fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, but this kind of came out of nowhere. Like you weren't mad after the first one, but you're mad after the sixth one. It just seems weird that it just kind of like happens. But in this, it's way easier for me to track Ramona's emotional journey as she reconnects with her exes.
Yeah.
And then there's like redemption for them.
Yes.
And I think that to me, this feels more mature.
Yes.
Because it has something better to say. If we talk about the theme of the original of the film, the theme seems to be like, here's two people that aren't really all that great apart, and they get together, and their kind of badness toward everybody else is kind of mirrored by each other, and so they're good for each other.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what it is, like find somebody on your level, I guess, is the theme.
Sure.
But in this series, it feels way more like this is a therapy session for Ramona to say, like, you have been at times callous and at times flippant and at times, just downright dismissive of your partners. And you found somebody who truly cares for you. And now, or at least it seems that way, she doesn't get to know him for very long. And she wants to try that. And so in doing that, she has to sort of face the ghosts of her past. That to me is a way like better story, like facing the ghost of your own past than facing the ghost of your ex's past.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that makes it a better, more mature, maybe more relatable story. More personal. And then the story takes this weird direction, which I love, where Scott comes back, but we realize that he's been in the future. And this is where it becomes sort of pseudo sequel,
Mm-hmm.
because we see that his in what would be prime timeline, his relationship with Ramona does not work out.
Right.
But it's really not because of her. It's because of him. It's because of Scott.
Yeah.
Scott didn't have his big emotional journey that we just watched Ramona go through. So he can't be with her. And Ramona, now having gone through what she's gone through, and then Scott conversely now kind of fighting, instead of the ghost of his past, sort of the ghost of his future, gets to realize how he needs to be with her. And so, which is, forgiving and allow her to, express herself, allow her to take some distance if she needs it. Don't be so clingy. Don't be so aggressive and possessive of her. And so all of these things, it feels like there's a greater story here in this series, and a better story to tell. And so I enjoyed that. And again, it feels more mature to me. And maybe that's the artist now having reminisced on his own work and saying, like, I think I could tell something different, and maybe something a little more nuanced. And I think that's what you end up with here. And I think that all of the elements kind of work better here. And partly that's because it's animation, right? So the elements where, essentially old Scott goes Super Saiyan seems to work a whole lot better here for me than if that had happened in live action. Because it feels more justified in this genre, or in this medium rather. And I think that the moment where Ramona and Scott get to fight together against evil future Scott is a great moment. And then we get, super Ramona at the end, and it's just like, it's like feeding everything you grew up on, whether it's Dragon Ball Z, Sonic the Hedgehog, like all of your Pac-Man, all of your, random Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, like all of these things you grew up on, throw them into a blender, hit the button, and but also tell your own story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this feels to me like its own story that utilizes those elements rather than, and this is not really a knock on the film, but rather than a story that is built around those references.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's why I feel like this is a more mature version of this story. Because again, it doesn't feel like it's built around the references. It feels like the references are informing the story choices made rather than dictating them. And so I don't know, it's weird, but that's kind of where I come down on it. I much prefer the series. Although I will say some of the, like there are some moments that stick out as being like a little bit too, off the narrative. Like there's this whole subplot where Brandon Routh's character falls in love with Wallace Wells, and like it's a funny bit, but it's a bit, and it feels like that takes the full episode, and takes a little bit of the spotlight away from Ramona, because remember at this point, like we're fully in Ramona's eyes, and then suddenly we're given an episode that's in the eyes of a random documentarian.
Yeah.
It feels like it deviated.
Yeah.
And so that episode, was a little miss for me because it wasn't told through Ramona's POV, but it was told through a documentarian. But apart from that weird narrative misstep, I think it's a pretty solid journey. Yeah, I don't know. And there's a lot of funny stuff. Like I did find myself laughing and chuckling at things here and there. Like, did you notice the director of the Scott Pilgrim film in the thing is Edgar Wrong?
Yeah.
Like these are, I don't know. And then like, Nick Frost and Simon Pegg have a cameo, and I don't know. It's a bunch of there's some cool stuff in here and things that got chuckles from me.
Yeah, keep in mind too, like something you're saying, like you mentioned how you watched the film after this because you realized that this was not a retelling of the film's story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you couldn't scratch that itch until you watched the film. So I rewatched the film before this.
Oh, okay.
So part of my exasperation or whatever could have been, okay, like I've I spent times, like maybe I'm too steeped in this world, like I'm, so who knows? I don't know.
Who knows?
I did really love, I thought the music was great.
Music's great.
A whole lot of music, a whole lot of songs. I looked at it, I saw like 50 something songs.
Yep.
Were like written and recorded by this band called Anamanaguchi, who I actually did know about.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I did know about that. It was crazy. I was like, whoa. Yeah. Look at that.
Huh. Cool.
I understood that reference. Yeah, they do like a lot of like 8-bit, or they did at least a lot of like 8-bit music. Like that's cool. Like their, yeah. So, but there was some other stuff. Like I did a deep dive into Metric because I didn't know their whole connection to this stuff. Metric is a band who wrote the music for the Clash of Demon Head, Brie Larson's character's band, in the original, in the film, and ultimately, like, wrote and released the song that she sings. I think it's called Black Sheep, that Brie Larson sings on the movie's song, but on the soundtrack, it's Emily Haynes and Metric. And then Metric did a cover in this one of a Sarah McLachlan song.
Yes.
Which I not only did I like genuinely love the song, like I listened to it a lot after that.
Yeah. Yep.
But like, I thought it was just a completely like fun, totally inappropriate thing for a character to do, which was go to Scott's funeral.
Yep.
Make it about yourself.
Yep.
And release a new song during it.
Yes, correct.
And then it's Knives is back there. I love you, Envy. It's like, Amanda's dead. Yes.
Your boyfriend is dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. So speaking of Envy, one of the things that did bump me kind of narratively is the coincidence of of her being Scott's ex and dating Ramona's
ex. Yeah.
It's like even in the film, back the first time I saw it, I was like, these two feel too connected. Like like the Scott and Ramona feel too connected. Yeah, it feels too destined.
Yeah.
Which to me, again, is kind of serves the purpose of older Scott being a villain in this, as he feels possessive of that destiny.
Yeah.
Like, no, she's mine. And it's not, no, dude, like chill.
Yeah.
And I even love, like, you know, at the end, there's that moment where he's like, you know, oh, I'm so sorry, Ramona. Future Scott's like, I'm so sorry, Ramona. And she's like, it's fine. Like, you should have just asked me or whatever. And he's like, oh, cool. Well, what about now? Like, can we be together? And she's like, no. You just tried to kill everybody. You know, it's like this like totally real moment. Like any other story would have been like, yeah, sure, we'll give it another shot.
Yeah.
And she's like, no,
absolutely not.
No, we're not doing this. But it's just so I don't know, man. Like I really resonated with the Super Saiyan fight at the end. Like that was one of the best parts. It's so cathartic to watch them just lay down punches together on old Scott, both now having grown. Like that's the main thing. Like that's what I want to get across is like in the first film, I don't feel like they grew as characters. They defeated the obstacles to their relationship.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel to me like they grew as people. And in this, it totally feels like they grew as people.
Yeah, I agree. I came away from the film, like you said, feeling like, okay, like we've perhaps accepted that someone has a past, but
yeah, sure.
It's really one of those things that didn't make Scott seem that great. Cause it's like, first of all, the man's dating a minor.
Yeah, right.
Which is all, it's kind of like,
yeah,
man, that was really underplayed.
Yeah, dude.
14 years ago. It's like, I feel like
they definitely like say that this is not a good thing, but yeah, it's so just like it's a thing.
But it's no one, everyone's sort of just weirded out by it, but no one says like, hey, Scott, like you might get in trouble.
Yeah.
But then again, what's the age of consent in Canada? Maybe it's different.
Oh, I have no idea. But
I don't want to Google it.
I don't Google it. But like the entire film, I believe, starts with once upon a time in Toronto, Canada.
Yeah.
Scott Pilgrim was dating a teenager.
Was dating a high schooler.
Yeah. And I'm like, whoa, what a way to make me immediately not like your character. I don't even know how old he is at this point, but that sentence just
he's like 22 or something, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not as old as Wallace, but
yeah, but I mean, like when they show that sentence on screen, dating a high schooler, it's like you don't know how old Scott is. You haven't been introduced to Scott yet, but you already don't like him because you're like, I'm just assuming he ain't in high school.
Yeah.
For all I know, he's 67. I have no clue.
But like, yeah, so there's that. Scott is, and he flippantly, disregards her to pursue Ramona. So already you feel like this relationship's not off to a good, honest start because he's cheating on his girlfriend and pretty immediately with Ramona and then can't tell her about it. And it's like, this is all relatable, but Scott, like you're not in high school. And maybe it's like, okay, Scott's very emotionally mature, whatever. That's why he's dating a high schooler in the first place. But it's like,
sure.
She also dated Envy Adams, who's very clearly like an adult and, is kind of mean and self-centered, but mature nonetheless, like not childlike.
Yeah.
So did breaking up with her revert him back to high school? Maybe that's what they're trying to say. I don't know.
I feel like the point of it was after their breakup, he like emotionally regressed or like shut himself off or just wanted to do what was easy. And like dating Knives was easy because he could control her because she idolized him. Yeah. And I feel like that was the thing. And yeah, you're right. Like in both versions, Scott is not a great guy. And, but likewise, like, Ramona's not from the get-go, she's not a bad person.
No.
But you begin to realize like she probably didn't treat these exes very well to begin with. And that's sort of what the show is about is like, you have all these flashbacks of like, how she broke up with Roxy
or which is just kind of leaving. But it's like you learn these things, and like she dated the twins, like, you know, at the same time, pretty much. It's like she's not in the clear either.
Sure.
So both of these people are not great people independently, and then getting them together, you have to. If the point is that them together is what works and that that's good for them to be together, you have to sell me on the fact that they've learned from their mistakes. And I don't think that the film taught me that, because by the end of the film, Scott kind of fights alongside Knives like they're allies.
Yeah.
And now granted, at the end, I think he makes it pretty clear he's not going to be with her. Like he breaks up with her, like, you know, we can't be together, whatever. And so like, great. But there's this moment where they're together.
Well, they're together, but like Ramona says, it's obvious, like she's in love with you or whatever. Like you should be with her. And then he's like, okay. And then he walks off with Knives, and Knives goes, no, you should be with her.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Right.
He doesn't even like, he's not even decisive at the end.
Exactly.
He just does what they both tell him to do.
He's super submissive. Yeah. Yeah, but like that's the point. Like it's not as cathartic to see him fight alongside Knives at the end as it is for him to fight alongside Ramona and forge a better future with her.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like. You know, granted, I never got like a skeevy feeling from their relationship in the first, in the film.
No, because it's pretty clear that it's not sexual yet. At least, like
exactly.
But her fighting with him at the end comes off more like the narrative is just trying to excuse Scott. So we're going to show you that Knives is okay and that she's fine and that she's mature enough to help Scott win Ramona. But it makes her seem more like a supporting character to him and not like a character with a lot of, I don't want to say no self-respect, like she wouldn't help him, but like you just sort of go, oh, like this person was a character and now she's just doing whatever the script needs her to do, which is help Scott, the protagonist.
Right, exactly. But like by the end of it, I guess I never really gave it much thought in terms of like, do you think that Ramona and Scott would stay together forever? Like I never really gave it much thought. It was just like, okay, they're together now. Cool.
Yeah.
Whatever. But with the series, it does feel way more like, I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And like they've learned, they're moving on. That's great. And another thing that I really appreciate about it as a writer is, like I said, it's the case where a writer is able to sort of revise their work in canon. And it's weird because we've seen, if you think about the Star Wars sequels, we've seen where Han and Leia didn't work out.
Right.
We saw that, but we didn't really see why necessarily, but we saw that it didn't work out. But we don't have this moment where they get to fall in love again. And so what's great about this from like just a purely like writer's standpoint is you get to revise your old work. You get to expound on it and say, you know what? Probably they weren't going to be okay, but let me write a version where they are going to be okay.
Yeah.
And so I think this film works best when seen as a companion to the original story.
I think so.
So like, don't view this in a vacuum. Like you have to watch this in conjunction because, and it's nebulous whether to watch it before or after, but like,
I think I'd still watch the film first, but I would space it apart.
Sure. Yeah. Don't tire yourself of this world, which admittedly can be tiresome.
Don't watch them back to back because you have a podcast.
Right. Exactly.
If you have Netflix or you have one of these hard copy, like do it a month apart.
Yeah, sure.
Watch it, absorb it, move on, watch other stuff, then come back and go, okay.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just a cool thing for a writer to be able to revise their story in canon and come out with a version that, at least for my money, is better. A version that feels more hopeful and a version that feels like our characters are better people. And so, yeah, I really enjoy it for that reason, just for the meta-ness of it and thinking of my own writing and thinking like, man, if I wrote something and then a decade later decided, oh, I actually don't like the way that I did that.
Yeah.
There's no way to fix it now.
Right.
It's like, no, there is. Just be creative and you can totally fix it.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't know. I'm not invested in this Scott Pilgrim world and, you know, the fandom or whatever. I have no idea if there's going to be more stories or like, I don't even know if the comics exceed this story. Like, are they still going? I have no idea.
I'm sure someone with money is asking these questions, and
Someone with money
I
is
don't
asking
think a good decision will be made when it's all said and done.
No, but I think that with this version, whether there's more or not, like this feels like the canon ending to me. Like, so for me, you're right. Watch the film or read the books, whatever, and then come and view this and see the version that's the actual ending for Scott and Ramona. And so it's weird that the story called Scott Pilgrim works better when Scott is gone, and that the story called Scott Pilgrim, it takes Scott being gone for it to actually become a good story about Scott Pilgrim. And yet it does. Scott has to go into the future and he has to see what becomes of them. This is, I mean, it's Charles Dickens. It's the Ghost of Christmas Present and the Ghost of Christmas Past and the Ghost of Christmas Future, but they're happening to two different people and they're both being affected and coming together to rectify these, you know, these problems. And I don't know, to me, yeah, that's just a cool, creative way to tell this story.
Well, and it gives you like the action you still get from the film, but in better, more fun ways and without the main. It's more complex because like it's certainly a mark of the times for both 2010 for the movie and then now for the series where, you know, especially retelling the story and doing it this other way where you're trying to do it more mature justice to the human experience.
Yeah.
To be able to say, all right, we are going to have Ramona be the protagonist because she instead of waiting for her boyfriend to confront her exes for her.
Yeah.
It's more cathartic that she do that herself and repair or grow from these reconnections. And for Scott, it's better that and so she can't do that because as a controlling person and as just plot wise, like a very skilled fighter that he apparently is, that he would just take control of her past in a way, reclaim it for himself through violence.
Yeah, sure.
Where in the series, they just take him right out of that so that she has room to actually talk to these people and relate to them on a human level.
Yep.
And then Scott gets thrown in the future where he doesn't really fight anybody except for himself, which is narratively appropriate for his journey, which is it's not about fighting and conquering the evil exes and asserting your dominance over, you know, Ramona's heart. It's about looking down the road and seeing where that attitude gets
will
you
lead
ultimately.
Yes.
And so by the time they meet back up, he's like, hey, I think I learned stuff. And she's like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. And I just love the idea of like all the exes fighting alongside them too as allies.
Yeah.
Like it's so redemptive. It's like, you know, this idea of, you've had a past, right? You've done things and you've been with people that you shouldn't have done and you shouldn't have been with. But there's always hope. And like you can be friends or at least be allies when the world is ending. And and like that's all there is to it. But yeah, there's two things that the film or that the series does right too by the film, which is one, the film falls into this trap where it's a little bit like Jasmine in Aladdin goes under Jafar's spell. It feels a little bit like that where Ramona falls under Gideon's spell again. Yeah. And she's like his little like henchwoman kind of thing. Like slave girl Leia or whatever. that never really sat right with me. Like I still don't quite understand why that happened. Like
no, nor the ending of the self-respect versus the power of love. It's like, well, but how does, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So that this corrects that. But then it also, by allowing Ramona to have her own agency throughout the entire story. And then rather than just falling prey to Gideon, I forgot the second one, but it's a great choice that it made. And like, I feel like I know Ramona way more because that's a great point you made where she just kind of feels like she's waiting for Scott to overcome this so she can be with him. Yeah. Like fine, just do the thing, just do the thing. And that's so passive and she has no agency in that way.
Right.
And it makes her feel complicit in him having to fight. And in this way, she's not complicit. She is, she's taking control and doing the hard work herself. And I don't know, it's so much better to me that way. As far as like the other thing I had to remind myself during the film, and it's because it's live action. The animation, I didn't have to do this quite as heavily, but like with the live action, I did have to remind myself like, okay, so why can Scott fight? Like, why does that make sense in this world that this guy can fight? And the only thing that I could come up with, and try this on for size, is this is the nerds equivalent, the sci-fi nerds equivalent of the movie musical, where everyone can sing and dance because they can, and it's an abstraction of something, of inner monologues and inner expression. And so the only thing I can come up with as an like an allegory or an analog to that is the movie musical. Everyone can fight because they just can, and you put any two people in a room and they can fight, and it can be super awesome and epic because it just can.
I buy that.
Yeah, so I had to tell myself that during while I'm watching the live action, like, why can Michael Cera fight Brandon Routh and win? Why is this?
And why is it acceptable that we can murder people?
Well, this too. Right.
And that's more just like the form follows, or the function follows the form. Like we're going to have these people fight as a form of expression, but since they're video game fights, at the end of it, they're going to turn to coins. But but you sort of just go, okay, metaphorically, Matthew Patel's been defeated. But then in this one, it's like, no, Scott Pilgrim's dead. Yeah. Matthew Patel killed him. We're at his funeral. Yep. And now he's dead. Yep. But no charges will be brought against Matthew Patel. Apparently, like, murder is okay. Yeah. In Canada, at least,
no one cares.
If you video game kill someone.
Right, exactly.
It makes you want to watch like a short film just to see a world in which this sort of violence is completely acceptable and legal.
Yes. Is there a difference? Can you kill somebody with blood and it's not cool, but you kill them with coins and it is cool?
Yeah.
Or does just no one die?
Like, can you return the coins like to a Coinstar and then you get the money and the person can come back to life?
Right. Second life.
Yeah. Like Matthew Patel walks out of the Coinstar machine and he's like, thanks for bringing my coins back, Scott, so I could keep living.
Yeah, right.
No problem, but I did it for the money. I hate you.
For some reason in my brain, I did think that these people all respawned at the end of the film.
Oh, and that's right.
And that they were all alive. But I don't think they did.
Somebody says that. In the show, someone said later when he respawned, the twins. He said later when they respawned at home, like, we became friends or something.
Oh, okay.
But that is not mentioned in the film that they respawn.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So that never sat well with me. Like, he murdered these people.
Yeah, they're all dead.
He kills Gideon.
Right.
He kills the twins. He kills Lucas Lee. He kills.
Well, another issue with the plot mechanics of the 7Xs is like, so they form the alliance to fight after, I guess, just before Scott becomes a thing, because they didn't have to fight each other to the death.
Right.
It's not like the twins, who I think were the most recent. They didn't have to fight all the others and kill them in order to claim their place. Or Gideon's the most recent, I guess.
Yeah.
But Gideon didn't have to fight and defeat everybody else in order to date her. So I guess they only formed this most recently.
They just decided that, you know what? Fuck Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, we just don't like him specifically. Yeah. Look at him with his Michael Cera hair.
So goofy and lovable.
Right. This cast is great.
Yeah.
It's so cool to hear. Like, if you ever hear any of them talk about this film, they're all like, dude, this was like the best film experience ever. So like, kudos to Edgar Wright for making it that way. But like, I've seen Chris Evans in interviews just be like, you know, this was a time in my career when like I'm hungry and everybody else was that same way. And, you know, it was like months of rehearsal. And then you go away and you come back to actually film your scenes. And it's like, you know, it's like a summer camp and it's like all these cool people and you're all into the same things. And like, you're going to shows together and and it's like, you just kind of like live together for a while. And it's like, that sounds so fun. And like, no wonder they all stayed in contact. And no wonder that they all blew up. Like, so many of them got so huge after this.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool to see them all come back. Like, you would have thought that, you know, if anybody, Chris Evans would be like, no, I'm not doing that again. Or
or Brie Larson. Or somebody
would have said no. Aubrey Plaza, you think, would have just been like, no, I'm not doing. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to do these hipster movies anymore. Yeah. But like, they're all in it, and that's so cool to see. And it's just a great cast. And so, but whether we're talking about the film or the series, it's equally great. And I love their chemistry together. And yeah, it's just fantastic.
I think Edgar Wright said that was like one of the the same from his point of view, which was that was one of the things that made making that film so fun and special for him, and that the cast has reunited for fan events and stuff over the years, even as recently as like a 10-year anniversary special or something, reading or something like that. And they all came back for it. Yeah. And so I think that is special and that's nice. It's always nice for a project to bring people together and not like cause people to hate each other or not talk to each other.
Well, I always think about like the cast of the Lord of the Rings and how like close they all seem to be. Yeah. And it's like, sometimes you just go through something, and obviously like the Lord of the Rings is huge, like amazing, on a completely different scale than this is. But just in terms of sheer like number of hours you worked on that project. Yeah. But yeah, like anytime a cast is that close and all that, like you just know it's something special, that you found the secret sauce. And so like kudos to Edgar Wright for finding this cast. And I think the casting director is Allison Jones, who casts like The Office and that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's like
Allison Jones is brilliant. Yeah.
It's like these people, they know what they're looking for and they know exactly what to find. And it's great.
Yeah. No,
it just all was fantastic.
Yeah, I simultaneously don't recommend the show, but think it's a great thing.
I do recommend the show, but I would say like to do star ratings, like the movie's 3.5, the show's 4. Like they're not perfect, but they're cool. And like I think the movie's somewhat more accessible to the modern audience just because it's like live action and it's Edgar Wright and it's, you know, whatever. But I would say it's the series is the better story and it's the better told of the two. Yeah. And I just don't know who I would recommend it to. Like if you're listening, I guess you have some interest in just whatever's good and whatever's decent to watch. Yeah. So like, cool. But like in my personal life, this is not one that I would tell my wife, like, you need to watch this.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just can't, I can't bring myself to do it because I just don't think she would appreciate the references and this weird cacophony of noise and like things you kind of have to know about a little bit to understand. But I will say I did show my wife one scene of the series. I pulled it up on YouTube and it was like, I have to just see if somebody has like this one scene. And sure enough, it's the scene where it's in the first episode where Scott and Ramona meet at the party and Scott comes up to Ramona. It's kind of this weird meta moment, but he says there's no talking. They're just standing next to each other, and he just blurts out as like an icebreaker. Did you know that in the 90s there were 2 simultaneous Sonic the Hedgehog shows happening at the same time, and they were both voiced by the same guy? And one was, like light and about chili dogs, and the other one was dark and depressing. And she just goes, "Oh, cool." And like, that's it. And I showed that to my wife because I'm like, how did they get footage of our first date? Because this is exactly what I would have done on that first date. Is like, let me tell you about Sonic the Hedgehog. But it is funny though. I understand that why they use that reference, because in the film they talk about Pac-Man.
Yeah.
And in this they talk about Sonic. And I think it's funny because the punchline is Scott says, can you believe that one actor got to voice the same 2 different versions of the same, or got to play 2 different versions of the same character? Yeah. And that's a weird meta joke for Michael Cera. True. Being able to play 2 different versions of the same character. But yeah, I was just like, this is hilarious, only because it hits way too close to home for how I flirted with my wife when we were dating.
I stole a mason jar when my wife and I first started dating.
Did you really? I know this story.
I did.
From the restaurant.
It's right over there. Yeah, I still have it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a monument to my moral corruption. To impress women.
What's funny is I told my wife that I was like, they got footage of our first date or whatever, and she goes, "You still do that?" I was like, "Do I?" She's like, "Yeah." The number of times that you just come home and I'm like, "How was work today?" And you go, "Well, they announced a new movie today and it was this." And like, here's the person who's starring in it. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I guess I do that." Okay. And like the joke being, how is my day going is not like, "Oh, well, this happened at work today." Yeah. For some reason, I'm internalizing movie news as how my life is going.
Well, they're making Toy Story 5, so you can imagine how
so you can imagine my frustration.
I also liked in the series here how they went from like, what is Ramona's job? And it's like, well, because this is a Netflix show, we can't have her delivering packages for our competitor Amazon.
For Amazon, yeah.
So we have to say that she delivers Netflix DVDs. Even though this very year and the time they're airing the show, Netflix DVDs are officially not a wing of their business anymore. I saw that. I was like, I get why y'all did that, but it was kind of like, I guess it's fun and retro, but immediately I was like, but people don't do that. And you know what? Human beings never did that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like people rollerbladed around and handed out DVDs.
No, just came through the mail.
And it's like, I guess they never did that for Amazon packages either, but.
Yes. In the show's defense, I think it does say a short time ago. Like it doesn't take place in the present.
That was Reed Hastings' note. Like, hey, we're phasing that out. So just some quick ADR.
Say this was in the past.
Say it was in the past. Yep. Don't want to confuse people. They watching the show and be like, oh, can I go get DVDs again?
I'm going to go get a DVD.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Send me a standard definition disc by mail.
I'd like to watch The Town on DVD, please.
The Town.
My copy of The Town, I think, is a Netflix DVD.
Is it really?
Yeah. I'll have to go check later. But I do own that movie, and
I'm 90% sure my copy of The Town was a DVD that I bought from Blockbuster. But it's not a Blockbuster rental. It's, you know how they sold stuff too. I think I bought it at Blockbuster.
You know, do the DVDs, don't they have like a seal on them, like a Netflix seal or something? They?
Probably.
Ooh, I could like frame it up in my house and display it.
Maybe it's worth something.
A relic. I know, right? Can you imagine like I call you tomorrow, like, Dustin, guess what? I'm a millionaire. I sold my DVD of The Town.
The Town. To Reed Hastings himself.
I blackmailed Reed Hastings with this DVD.
Yes.
This oversight, they never got it back from me.
Yep.
Reed Hastings killed 3 employees as punishment for this oversight.
How dare you? No wonder we went under.
How
many people did this? I have to destroy the evidence. Quick, I'll pay this man $4 million.
I have to just shut him up.
Here's your hush money, Hooper.
How much
Please don't mention this on your wildly successful podcast.
honestly, I don't know, Reed. I've got a pretty great following. Like, okay, how's about $1 million, Reed?
Come on,
baby.
Well, I all I have to do is say the word on the show.
You don't want me to tell all my people about it?
All right, $12 million. That's my final deal.
All right. How about 12.5? How about that, Reed? Huh?
You drive a hard bargain
okay.
there, Mr. Hooper. But fine, 12.5. You know what? I'll make it 13 for your troubles.
No, don't, because that's not what I fucking said. I said 12.5. Okay.
Fine, I'll donate the other 5 to charity.
You're not in control here. No, don't donate it.
You dare donate it to charity.
Don't donate it. No,
they don't need your $500,000.
Nobody gets that money. Okay.
What do you think the ASPCA wants your money for?
Reed, I'm in charge. I'm in charge.
I'm in charge of everything but my vocabulary.
That feels like a recycled Barbie joke. I am in charge.
I'm in charge.
He should have said that when she came back to Barbie Land and it's all patriarchy. Ken, what's happening?
That's Ken.
I'm in charge now.
I'm in charge.
Yeah. I am the captain now, Reed.
I'm the captain now. I'm in charge of this boat.
I'm in charge of this boat. I'm the boss. We'll just end the episode with just both of us coughing.
Not even a goodbye. Just out.
That's the stereotypical like animation. Like
yeah.
Quiet.
Yes.
I don't remember when that happened, but at a certain point, it was no longer crickets. I think it was when we became older and we aged out of crickets being like this signal for no one's clapping or laughing or cares.
Yep. That feels like a very SpongeBob thing and like a Simpsons thing.
Yeah, Simpsons, Family Guy.
Yeah. Huh?
What do you think?
Fine, I'll take my ideas elsewhere.